We've talked a lot about cuts from above. Those are, I think, a really good standard in terms of learning how to do cuts. But at some point, we really want to start looking at low cuts. So when we think about Unterhaue, like, is this the default that we should be thinking about? Or should we be maybe exploring other things? Next. All right, Jeffzai Forte Swordplay. Today, we're gonna actually take a look not at the high cuts, the cuts from above, the Oberhaue, but the Unterhaue, actually. In terms of the different patterns that we've been doing, everything we've been teaching from a default has generally been above. I think the German system tends to prefer those, have a lot of emphasis on them, but it also definitely has like a lot of emphasis and mention with throwing low cuts. But if you look at things like Joachim Meyer, a lot of times there will be mentions of throwing a low cut or like a pair of low cuts or something with really no extra detail. And so we went through a lot of effort actually kind of trying to fill out the space of possibilities when it comes to what are all the different ways you can actually move with the high cut. What about the low cut? So we're going to get more into those kind of specifics in a little bit, but without spelling out all of the different ways you can do low cuts, what I wanted to do was actually kind of emphasize when you think Unterhaue, a lot of people, for Oberhaue, we think about the X, and so it becomes kind of natural to think about the X this way with the long edge coming up. And if you think about the range, right? So here's going to be my longest range. Once I start turning over here to these positions that you associate with like shortcuts, there's a reason they're called shortcuts, because that range is shortened. And so when you're coming from below, if you really want the longest distance, you really actually don't want to be using these guys. You want to at least be experimenting with these, right? That same sort of longest reach, except coming from below with what normally they would call a short edge. It's still the same edge, but when it's coming from below, it's in a weird way that's actually really the long one. So that being said, so have we actually seen this before? The answer is yes, right? So if we actually go back and we look at Aufstreichen, this idea of like, here, I'm doing this and I'm sweeping up underneath or even potentially on top of somebody else's blade, but I'm coming from below, right? So this is an Unterhaue. And so if we are thinking about chaining together some of these cuts from below, what is a simple good way, what's maybe like a couple of good default patterns to use? And how do we actually potentially explore that by coming up with a good Frequens Motus flow drill to actually do that? So without going into the whole framework, we're going to set up a good flow. And actually as a, just a point of like comfortable flows that we've actually explored in the past, we're going to do the sort of Zorn Aufstreichen flow. And at some point, we're going to switch from the sort of attacker-defender flow to the blitz flow, where Cody here is not going to just be doing attack-defend, but actually will just become attack, 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 attack. And when that happens, obviously, like just training yourself to recognize that transition is important, so that like you can adjust and adapt as soon as someone actually kind of changes tactics on you like that. We want to practice, okay, what's a good way to actually sort of establish a good dynamic defense? And in this case, we'll use this as an opportunity to actually play with the low cuts. And in fact, in particular, using the Aufstreichen kind of low cuts. Okay, so here's the drill, right? So starting with the Zorn Aufstreichen flow drill. So here's Aufstreichen, Zorn, Aufstreichen, Zorn, and at whatever point, Cody can start to blitz me. Okay, cool. So one of the things that Meyer talks about is also this idea of crosscuts, where you can certainly do this kind of stuff and actually attempt to sort of like knock things down. put up that shield of defense. Similarly, almost in reverse of that, instead of doing this, so you see this is our full cuts, the full cut cutting X, which creates a infinity pattern, right? We can do the same thing where we actually come up underneath in reverse, right? So actually, if I just have Cody throw me a few blitz blows, but not coming forward, let me just kind of like... And if you noticed, I'm going to have Cody do this again in a second. For a majority of that, he was just alternating, and so that becomes predictable for me. I'm going to ask him to do this again, where actually now he's going to change up. He's going to still keep it attacks from above, but alternating, randomizing whether he's attacking from the same side or alternating. Okay, so, and let's see if this pattern that I'm using actually holds up. Good, yeah. So even though he is randomizing what side that he's attacking from, for the most part, I can actually pretty much fairly mindlessly stick to, I'm just gonna do that infinity pattern. I'm sort of like sweeping from one side, sweeping from the other side, sweeping from the one side, sweeping from the other side. And I will either end up either below his blade or above his blade, no matter what side he chooses to sort of attack from. So what's kind of nice about this pattern is that, similar to Krumpau, actually, you can kind of use that pattern fairly mindlessly and just adjust it depending on the side and the angle that the opponent is actually throwing their attack from. And the other thing that I showed a little bit, and we don't have a ton of room here for like an exploration on the footwork aspect of it. Actually, maybe what we'll do is we'll do this one more time, and I'll do it so you can kind of see over my shoulder. Another thing to obviously play with is the footwork piece of this. If you're going to be doing this and retreating, you can maybe kind of do it in a square kind of way, but it might actually be really helpful to actually do it more profiled, and then playing with those sorts of footwork patterns. Again, I think this is a very new area of exploration, but kind of putting it out there so that you guys know that we're kind of exploring it. And yeah, love it if you guys want to give it a try. Give us some feedback in the comments and see what you're finding. So let's try this one more time, and hopefully this time you can kind of see the footwork a little bit more. Actually, let's do it this way. Okay, so all right, go ahead. So notice as I'm doing it, I can be sort of pivoting back and forth, but these kind of rotations take time. And so especially if I'm playing defense and I want to actually, be able to like close things down very, very quickly, it turns out for me, as I explore it, it's easier to stay profiled with that right foot, right shoulder, right foot forward. This is my longest distance. This is not my longest distance with the crossed hands, right? So if I can kind of keep here with this profile and actually try to stick to, one cut, one step, one cut, one step, one cut, one step, I think that's definitely a pattern that I'm finding is really pretty interesting. And, from here, if I'm doing this, it also allows me to do stuff like this, right? And so some of those leaned away, profiled kind of positions also potentially just naturally happen. So yeah, there we go. Exploring low cuts, not just with the long edge, which everybody I think kind of defaults to, but in particular with that so-called short edge or back edge coming up from below, thinking about chaining them together from both sides using that sort of infinity pattern. Maybe that's something worth taking a look at, all right? Check it out, see what you think, and we'll see you next time.